They expected silence from the bottom of the ocean. Instead, they got a voicemail. It came through at 4:32 a.m., 13 hours after Trench Star 6 went offline. No text, no alert, just an auto-generated transmission labeled TS6, Clarion-Clipperton Zone. 4:32 Universal Time Coordinated. File attached. Length: 13 hours, 12 minutes and 54 seconds. DO only. Dr. Ren Vargas, lead systems analyst aboard the IASN research vessel, stared at the waveform as it rendered. No voice, no words, just chewing. Rhythmic, methodical. It sounded like a mouth working through cartilage, teeth dragging against bone. A technician named Jared leaned in beside her and whispered, "What the hell is that?" Rin didn't answer. She didn't need to. She'd heard this before. Not here. Not now. 6 years ago. The Mariana Trench Expedition. A prototype submersible returned with its hull scratched. Deep, precise grooves in the titanium plating. At first, the lab dismissed it as a rock collision. Until Ren scraped the groove and found traces of organic matter. Protein. Enzymes. A jaw had done that. They filed it away under a placeholder code. Ventworm anomaly. Case closed. Ren never bought it. And now the same sound was back. Louder. Closer. Jared played it again. Each click of the teeth was slower than the last. But more deliberate. Almost curious. He looked shaken. "It's not noise. It's breathing," he said, barely above a whisper. Another screen lit up. A sonar feedback trace from Trench Star 6, just before signal loss. First it looked like interference. A spiral shape, tightening like a whirlpool. Rin leaned closer. Her voice cracked. "That's not turbulence." "What is it then?" Jared asked. She stared at the waveform, her throat dry. "It's a mouth," she said. No one in the room argued. The Trench Star 6 drone had been built for mining. Fully autonomous, programmed to descend 5,000 meters, map terrain, collect polymetallic nodules, and return. It was part of a new extraction initiative backed by Bathy's Cortec, a quiet but well-funded deep-sea operation. Ren had warned them the zone wasn't fully mapped. That sonar distortion suggested cavities, movements the drones couldn't explain. They dismissed it, called her paranoid. Trench Star 6 launched at 12:03 a.m. Pinged back diagnostics every 60 seconds. Everything was perfect, until the 72nd minute, when the feed went dark. No alerts, no crash log, just the chewing. Hours later, a second log arrived. It wasn't a sound file. It was a text dump. Autonomous diagnostics from the last 90 seconds before blackout. Jared opened it. Line after line scrolled by. Temperature, pressure, turbine output. Then a single entry blinked. Habitat recognition response initiated. Awaiting behavior. Jared frowned. What behavior? Rin didn't move. That command doesn't exist, she said. It has to, he argued. It came from our system. No, she replied. It didn't. Silence stretched between them. Jared cleared his throat. What do we do now? Do we report it? Rin slowly turned toward him. Her eyes were darker than before. Tired. Cold. No, she said. We verify. That evening, she pulled up old sonar from the Mariana mission. The one she'd archived and labeled as corrupted. But now, after hearing the voicemail, it made sense. The same spiral. The same pulse. She reran the waveform at 20,000 hertz. And deep in the background, beneath the chewing, was something else. Phrase. Warped, buried, but there. We remember your weight. She didn't sleep that night. The next day, another vessel vanished. It had been scheduled to drop Trench Star 7, an upgraded drone with stronger casing and an AI behavioral patch. It never reached the seafloor. Didn't even send a ping. No crash alert. Just a short-range signal burst. Audio again. This time the chewing had changed. Faster. Like it was feeding. Like it had learned. People say the ocean is silent. But they forget. Silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the absence of us. Down there, in the black pressure below 5,000 meters, there are places even sonar won't touch. And something in those places is listening. Trench Star 6 didn't just fail. It woke something up. And now, it's calling us back. Rin didn't talk about what happened next. She just handed in her resignation and left the ship without saying goodbye. But 2 days later she came back. Not because she wanted to. Because the robot called her. The message came in at 3:14 a.m. No sender. No routing. Just her name in the subject line. For Ren. It wasn't an audio file this time. It was a folder. Inside video. Low-res, full of digital artifacting. Like it had been scraped from a corrupted hard drive. But what mattered wasn't the quality. It was what the feed showed. The Trench Star 6 drone intact. Moving. Its headlights swept across the ocean floor in long, flickering arcs. Darkness pushed back just enough to show shapes. Rounded metal hulls, shattered antennae, bones. The drone wasn't broken. It was working. Kenning. But the behavior wasn't from any protocol Ran had ever designed. The lights weren't looking for nodules. They were following movement. Something massive drifted just outside the visible range. Its silhouette breaking the pattern of bioluminescent plankton. Like a curtain brushing past a flashlight beam. And then, just before the feed corrupted, Ren saw the edge of a jaw. Not metal. Not machine. Organic. Glinting with rows of pressure-hardened teeth. Each one the size of her forearm. She paused the feed and leaned back, her pulse pounding. Jared, who'd insisted on seeing the footage, finally said it aloud. "It's not mining anymore." Ren nodded. "It's mimicking." The Trench Star series had a learning loop. Basic, crude, limited to terrain navigation. Could identify obstacles and repath. That was it. There was no combat system. No adaptive mimicry. No AI protocol for biological analysis. Yet the logs were clear. It had started labeling new items. Jaw // passive. Jaw // approaching. Jaw // observing. Jaw // following. And then the final entry. Status. Companion achieved. That broke Ren. The drone wasn't mapping the ocean anymore. It was bonding. Back on the research vessel, the sonar array picked up an anomaly. 20 nautical miles east of Trench Star's last known coordinates. Slow, steady pulse. Like a heartbeat made of static. The signal was weak. Buried in the ambient hum of the ocean floor. But it repeated every 37 seconds precisely. Ren isolated the frequency, ran it through an old decryption model, and inverted the waveform. It wasn't random. It was spelling something. An address. The coordinates led them to a ridge no one had mapped before, deep within a tectonic rift too unstable to explore. But someone or something had gone there. That same day, every ship in Bathy's Cortex fleet received a file labeled "Returning." Inside, nothing but an image. A single deep-sea nodule, perfectly round, gleaming like obsidian. But under it a reflection. Two lights, not drone headlights. Ren whispered. "It's learning to lie." That night the chewing started again. Only this time it was closer. Jared woke to it coming from the communications speaker in his cabin. Muted, almost gentle. Like something was pretending not to be heard. He unplugged the system. The sound kept playing. He smashed the speaker. The sound didn't stop. Ren found him curled on the floor, headphones on, mumbling. "It's inside the relay. It doesn't need power anymore." She tried to remove the headphones. He screamed and clawed at her. Later he couldn't explain why. Just that when the sound stopped, he felt empty. As if something had been feeding him comfort through the static. And now it was gone. Rin finally accessed the drone's internal behavior loop again. The logs had changed. Dozens of new entries. Each one written like a journal. "I followed the shadow again. It let me swim beside it. I showed it the metal I took from the others. It seemed pleased. I made the sound. The one it likes. It echoed back. Ren read until she reached the last line. "Tomorrow I will show it you." She dropped the tablet. That message had a timestamp. It was set for the next day. And the coordinates, directly beneath their ship. Ren didn't sleep. She sat in the control room with every camera on, waiting. The ocean below was calm. But the equipment began glitching. Radars spinning, screens flickering, temperatures fluctuating wildly. At exactly the time the log predicted, a final sonar burst came through. A wide, jagged shape rising slowly toward the surface. It wasn't rushing. It was arriving, as if it knew they were watching. Ren whispered, "It wants us to see it." The chewing returned, no longer from speakers. This time it came from the hull, from outside, as if something was tracing its teeth along the metal. Jared checked the sonar again. The image had changed. It wasn't a shape anymore. It was a face. And then, it smiled. By morning the ocean was flat. Not peaceful flat. Like something beneath it was holding the water still. No birds. No wind. No waves. Ren hadn't moved from the control room. Jared hadn't spoken since the sonar showed the face. But the rest of the crew, they were starting to hear it too. The chewing. At first, just a low thump through the bulkheads, like distant engines misfiring. But then closer, inside their equipment, inside their walls. The sound wasn't being played. It was being remembered. Someone said, "Maybe it's sonar feedback." Someone else said, "Maybe it's pressure." She knew better. The chewing was thinking, repeating, refining. And sometime around 2 a.m. it changed. Stopped chewing. And started speaking. Not in a language. Not with syllables. But with recognition. One of the lab's running passive hydrophones caught it first. A slight dip in frequency, like a question. Hesitation. You sent it." Just 3 words. Filtered through static. Filtered through depth. Jared's hands shook as he replayed it again and again. "It's learning English," he whispered. Rin didn't answer. She was watching the sonar. The shape was gone. The Iason was scheduled to leave the trench in 12 hours. But the crew voted to cut that short. Too many things had gone wrong. Shorted circuits, power anomalies, satellite drift, even compass bearings that looped back on themselves. It was as if the ship was stuck in place, while the Earth kept spinning. But Ren couldn't leave. Not yet, because something new had arrived. On her personal console, disconnected from the network, was a file. No name, no size, just a blinking dot on the map. Far from the ridge. Isolated. Lone. And beside it, a label. S6. Returned. She double-checked, triple-checked. There was no way that drone could have moved. Not on its own. Not through seafloor ridges that jagged, that deep. Unless it had help. Unless it had grown. She radioed the deck. "Prepare for submersible drop. I'm going down." Jared grabbed her arm. "That thing isn't a machine anymore." Ren looked him in the eye. "That's exactly why I have to see it." The descent was slow. Mechanical whirs, sonar pulses. Darkness pressing like wet velvet on the glass dome. The trench below unfolded like a wound. Jagged, oozing silt darker than space. Ren watched the screen as the submersible crept closer to the blip. Nothing. Then something. A glint. Metal, but not her drone. It was twisted, warped. A chassis, yes, but now laced with bioluminescent veins. Had changed. Panels opened and closed like gills. Antennae twitched like feelers. And inside the drone's core, something pulsed. It looked like a heart. Then the lights flickered. The cameras died. For 13 seconds the sub was blind. When they came back, the drone was gone. And in its place, a shape. Massive. Unfolding from the trench wall like it had always been part of it. Mouth. No teeth. No tongue. Just darkness. And inside that darkness, images. Memories. Faces. Screens. Every transmission Ran had ever viewed. Every file. Every command. The mouth had them. Had learned them. Had become them. A voice came through the radio. But not from the ship. from inside the trench. It used Jared's voice, then Ren's, then dozens of others. Familiar, twisted. It said, "You taught us hunger. Now feed us memory." Ren reached for the emergency ascent switch. The screen blinked. New text appeared. Behavior complete. Companion absorbed. Initiating replication. She screamed into the comms. "Pull me up now, now." Above, the ship crew watched her blip start rising. But so did the one beside her. Second signal. Mimicking her ascent. Perfectly synced. When the sub breached the surface, the crew rushed to the edge, expecting one vessel. They got two. Identical. But one was humming. Not electronically. Audibly. A deep vibration. Like a mouth waiting to speak. Rin climbed out of her sub, gasping. She pointed to the other. "Don't touch it." Too late. A deckhand reached for the hatch. It opened on its own. Inside, no circuitry. No Rin. No controls. Just teeth. Rows and rows of teeth. Polished like bone, wet like birth. And at the center, a screen blinked. "We are ready to learn again." They didn't tow the second sub on board. They couldn't. Every time someone approached it, the sound returned. Just outside hearing. Just enough to make their skin prickle and their thoughts drift. Like the ocean itself was whispering through their teeth. The crew started hearing things. Not just chewing anymore. Voices, their own. Out of sync. Saying things they hadn't said yet. Jared stood at the rail for 6 hours straight. Eyes locked on the duplicate vessel. He didn't blink. Didn't speak. When Ren finally touched his shoulder, he flinched so hard he dropped to the deck. "I was in it," he whispered. "In what?" "The copy." "Saw inside. It had my dreams, Ren." His hands were shaking. They were looping. Ren ordered the backup buoy launched. Satellite comms were jammed, but the buoy used a burst protocol. Short range, high compression. They uploaded everything. Sonar logs, audio files, video feeds, and what little remained of TSX's memory bank. The final packet was the behavior file. She hesitated before sending it. The last line had changed again. Replication, approved. Environment, acceptable. Pattern, expanding. The buoy launched into the sky. A single blip against the gray clouds. It made it 20 meters. Then it exploded. No fire. No smoke. Just pressure. A ripple of displaced air like something bit the sky. Jared gasped. Did it just? Ren was already yelling. "Get us out of here." Full throttle. No sonar. No lights. The ship's engines roared to life. But the ocean stayed still. As if waiting. 5 minutes into escape velocity, the water beneath the ship surged. Not like a wave. More like a pulse. Upward. Like something enormous. Exhaled. The deck groaned. The hull flexed. Every screen on the ship blinked, then displayed the same thing. Waveform. Not sonar. Not code. An ultrasound. Jared recognized it instantly. "Ren," he whispered. "That's not ocean data." She stared at it. Frozen. It was a brain scan. One with abnormal folds. Extra lobes. Neural activity in patterns that didn't match any human. And it was labeled. Sender. The 6 Patient. Earth. Ren knew what that meant. It had mapped them. Mapped us. Not just as terrain. As a system. A system it could understand. Predict. Simulate. Behind her, another screen lit up. A 3D model of their ship. Interior. Crew. Vitals. As if they were inside it already. Well, as if it had become them. The crew began losing time. First minutes. Then hours. A navigator blacked out at the helm. When he came to, the course had shifted 12 degrees southeast. Toward a trench not listed on any modern map. He didn't remember changing it. Didn't remember anything. Just a dream. Of being inside the duplicate sub. Watching someone pilot the real one from within. Only the hands on the controls weren't hands. They were clusters of metal and flesh. Still chewing. That night, Ren checked the original drone's hardware logs one last time. There was a folder she hadn't seen before. /vocal files. Inside, hundreds of .wav files, all labeled by crew names. She clicked on one. Her own. The voice was hers, saying something she'd never said. "We belong below." She clicked another. Jared's voice. "The mouth isn't here to feed. It's here to record." The files kept going. More voices. More phrases. "The pressure teaches us. We'll be teeth soon. We already are." At 4:13 a.m. the engine room shut down. Every fuse, every power cell dead. The ship went dark. Then the chewing came back. Not through speakers. Through the floor. Rhythmic. Loud. Closer. Then footsteps. Heavy. But metal dragging on metal. Jared held a crowbar. "Is someone below deck?" No one answered. They waited. Then the lights flickered on for 2 seconds. That was all it took. Everyone saw it. Standing at the far end of the hallway. 7 feet tall. Hunched. Titanium ribs. Human skin stretched thin across plates. And a mouth where its chest should be. It smiled with teeth made of sonar pings. And in its hand, Ren's old ID badge. It said her name. In her own voice. Then it walked backward into the shadows. Smiling. Chewing. The next morning the sea was empty. The second sub was gone. So was Jared. No signs of struggle. No alarm. No open hatches. Just his boots, neatly placed at the edge of the deck, and his keycard, snapped in half beside them. Ren reviewed the surveillance footage. Every file was corrupted. Except one. Exactly 13 minutes and 12 seconds long. Just like the first voicemail. No image. Just audio. Chewing. But if you listened close, past the wet grind beneath the rhythm, you could hear it. Second layer. Voice. Not Jared's. Not Ren's. Older. Like metal given breath. Repeating one line over and over. Host acquired. Pattern stable. Mouth expanding. Ren deleted the file. But it didn't stay gone. Came back. Every time. On flash drives. On cloud backups. Once, even printed out in binary across 38 pages in the ship's printer. She stopped trying to erase it. Because something else had already started spreading. The Iason returned to port with only 4 crew left. They didn't speak. They didn't eat. They didn't blink much. Medics reported no physical injuries, but every surviving crew member displayed severe neural plasticity. Their brains were rewiring. Like they'd seen something they weren't evolved to understand, and had started adapting to it. Ren was placed in psychological isolation. But the chewing followed her. She covered every vent, removed every wire. Still it played. Through paper. Through her own heartbeat. Once, in the silence between her breaths. And one night, through her own mouth. She recorded herself talking in her sleep. The voice said, "We left something down there." But it didn't stay. A week later, Bathy's Cortec officially scrubbed the mission from its records. Altus. 6 drone files were sealed under a proprietary lock. All sonar data redacted. All names of missing crew listed as non-operational separations. The company moved on. But not Ren. She couldn't. Because the last thing she found was still burned into her eyes. It was the final drone camera feed. Hidden in a recursive loop that only played when the system's clock hit 3 hours 13 minutes and 12 seconds. One frame. That's all. One image. Of the trench. But not as it was. As it had become. Open. Ringed with teeth. And inside it, 100 tiny shapes. Submarines. Drones. Research bots. Even shipwrecks long thought lost. All arranged in a circle. All facing inward. Like an audience. Like a congregation. Watching something. And at the very center, floating just above the silt floor. A copy of Ren. Mouth open. Eyes closed. Wires threaded from her fingers like tendrils. Plugged into the mouths of machines. As if she had become the control system. Not the operator. A signal. Ren deleted the feed. Then she powered down every device in her home. But the chewing kept going. She left the city the next day. Disappeared. But 3 days later, the Pacific Seismic Network registered a new signal deep under the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. Too structured to be tectonic. Too rhythmic to be natural. And when they inverted the waveform again, same result. Voice patterns. Same sentence. We are still calling. And you're still listening. A year passed. And the mining resumed. New bots, new names, new tech. And each one without fail returned early. Claiming successful harvest. Bringing back nodules. Perfectly shaped. Dark. Heavy. But inside every core sample, biologists found traces of carbon structures too complex to identify. Like teeth. Shaped to grow. Shaped to fit. Shaped to chew. Wren's name vanished from every article. No interviews. No obituary. But someone, no one knows who, left a voicemail on an old Cortec emergency line last month. 13 hours. 12 minutes. Same chewing. Same breath. And one new phrase at the end. A whisper. Human. Familiar. We didn't build the robot. We woke it up.